Okay, we have stamped our stamp sketches out here. And what we're going to do is we're going to let these kind of set up and dry for a little bit before we go back in and finish these ones off. I don't know, we're not going to finish all of them off, but let's just let these set for a little bit. And let's go into our next surface here. I mean, we could go into any of these. I'm just going to go into the Stardream blue one. This is a really easy and, relatively quick process right here on this card, the way that I use it. And it's also really fun. I say all of these are really fun, but this one's a quick and fun one, okay? All right, so we're going to take a white pigment ink here. You can go with the Brilliance or just whatever brand of white pigment ink you have. They'll all dry on this type of paper just fine. Okay? All right, now here's the consideration you have to think about before we start this one. I mean, not really. But I'm finding it's just kind of faster to start off with some kind of glowing light. We could start off with the moon first. What it's going to be is a moon over the lake, okay? And through working with a lot of the foils, I found that it's kind of nice just to put in that light before we stamp the imagery out. On this one, you can do it really either way, though. But I just find that it's really fast and easy and quick to do this process first. Let me take a look at this scene right here. Okay, so on this one right here, let's not do the reflection down here, but let's go with this basic composition. Okay, so I'll flip this around like this, and I'm going to aim for my moon to be roughly about right here. Okay, and then the water reflection will be right below it. Okay, this is really fun right here on this paper. Okay, so yeah, either one of these right here. Why don't I play around with both and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so the Hero Hues, Unicorn White. My pad is kind of dry. I don't know, I haven't gotten around to getting a new one here. Yet. Okay, let's dip into our really high-tech inking, toning blenders. You can call it a blending cloud, I'm just joking. Okay, so moon and reflections down here, okay? All right. You're just going to ink up like this. Now, a lot of your pads might be super juicy. A lot of pigment ink pads are, okay? If they're brand new, or if you just don't use it very much, you can have one of these sitting around and it's quite juicy for, I don't know, 10 years sitting on your shelf, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to get a good inking up of this. I'll show you what this looks like on the, both these sides are the same, but that's what it's going to look like, okay? All right, so that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink up right here, okay? Like I said, don't worry if you're getting blobs. If you're worried about getting blobs, or if you are getting blobs, just kind of, take some of it off first, and then go back on there, okay? Remember, it's just like stamping something like this out. If you don't want a really harsh, visual of some type of media applied to a surface, then just don't have it there. Wipe it off. With something like this, if there's way too much ink on it, dab it off first. A lot, even, okay? Don't make it a precarious exercise. If you have kind of very little media on your surface here, it's going to apply a very light amount of it. See, that's not even bad. See, then when I build it up like this, it gets lighter and lighter, like that. But look at this. I mean, you can do that, and it doesn't really make, kind of an obtrusive looking mark, or undesirable mark, okay? But if I go like this with a super wet one, we're not going to do that type of, application of it, but just to show you, okay? Or you can just tap lighter, okay? In terms of pressure, okay? All right, see that kind of glow right there? I kind of centered it right there, and I'll show you what I the the thing that you're going to be used to if you haven't done this before is, you know, when you apply it down like this, okay? See how it's kind of centered right there in terms of a little bit of a brighter glow? And then you take this, when it's a little bit drier, and you apply it around the perimeter of that. Now, doesn't that look like it's kind of glowing from the center, and it's lighter on the outside edge? It's because I'm tapping it lighter like that, okay? All right, so we have that right there. And then this is the glowing light. It looks like a little eye or something like this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can expand this out a little bit more if you want to. You don't really need to, though. Maybe you could. Okay, this is going to represent the lighting on the lake right here, okay? There's not going to be too much of it. Okay, now here's a little thing, too. If you want a little bit more light on your rocks, then come out here. Now, I'm just going to try to... you know, stamp those rocks somewhere roughly around in that area. But doesn't it look like a little person or something like that? But can you see where it is? Kind of the moon and the reflection down here on the water. You can even do little streaks out like this and kind of pull some of that ink out to the edge like that. That might be fun, okay? Like this, okay? It doesn't already kind of look like a, you know, like a reflection on the water. All right, easy enough. I don't know, I didn't use the Brilliance. Well, let me see what the Brilliance looks like. Okay, the Brilliance is even lighter, okay? And maybe I'll put some of that down here on the water, okay? Something like that. That's not perfect or anything like that. It doesn't have to be, okay? All right, now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our black pigment ink, whatever brand you have. Versafine Clair, Versafine, the Brilliance black, graphite black, whatever black, okay? I don't think I've tried the Versafine. I just got this pad, and I kind of just started using it for the, I don't know, maybe one time before then. I really like it. Gosh, I don't even remember the scene I just used it on in my previous videos. Okay, so let's get equipped here again with Lakeside Cove Small. Well, Lakeside Cove 048G. All right. And should I stamp this around? You could stamp the moon first or whatever. It doesn't matter. I like this pad. The actual fabric of the Versafine Clair. It's nice and dense, isn't it? Okay, and on this one right here, this paper is really dark, and I'm stamping this pretty low on the horizon. You could wipe that bottom part if you want to, you know. I don't know, it takes you a couple seconds, but you really don't need to because this paper is so dark to begin with. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to stamp this, you know, roughly. I mean, I don't always put in that little white there, you know, for the rocks, but I did on this one, so I'm just going to stamp that out like so. I stamped this out, I think I'm stamping this out much lower than this model one right here, which is much higher, so I don't know, it just, put it wherever you want, but look at that. Really, now this paper was really dark, right, but it's nothing compared to that pigment ink black. You could probably use a dye-based black on this. I think the pigment ink is a little bolder, right? Okay, remember? Overlapping like this, okay. Re-inking, okay. Overlapping the other side. Get good even pressure quality. Then we have that. All right. It's coming along pretty fast. The previous video is going to be the longest one, going over, I don't know, like the basic things, okay? But those little things like wiping off the edge really can, it can just save you a lot of time. It's just a, you know, kind of a good general kind of habit to have, okay? A little bit of wiping off on the edge here. Now, I mean, if I'm stamping this out in a really light blue tone, onto white paper or something like that, you don't really don't need to wipe off the edge too much, you know. It's not going to be, you know, very visible. But I am stamping this in the darkest color possible, which is, you know, black, so it's a good thing to kind of wipe off the perimeter. On this one right here, we were going with a fairly dark navy blue against the white. That's why we wiped off the edges, okay? All right, so what I do is here's that little moon, and I'm putting my finger roughly around that spot where I think it is. So see, when I'm going like this and matching it up with that area right there, you know, I think I can get a pretty good registration with it. If I'm a little bit off, it doesn't matter because I made my little glowing moon area wider than, you know, that moon right there, okay? All right, you can see where that white came into play. Isn't that fun? And see where there's a little bit of white on those rocks right there inherently? Now, I like going in and adding some additional highlights in here, but it's kind of just nice to have it inherently in there already. You know, I mean, I could have had white out here, you know, where you're catching some more of that lighting too if you wanted to, but you don't need to. Or you could in the future, you know what I mean? Just tweak it around, play around with it. Okay, let's go in and add in some of those extra little features that will, I don't know, kind of give this a little bit more depth and, I don't know, visual distance in here. Okay. All right. Adding those reeds down here, like so. Remember to, if you want to, you can leave a little bit of an opening, changing your angle, changing the height. Go like this. Tilt it back this way if you want to. Something like that, okay? All right, now we're going to do something on this one that's going to add some additional depth to the sky, okay? And we're going to be doing this a lot when we get into the color work especially. But let's get started doing something just kind of minimally on the Stardream paper. It's really fun, okay? Now, here's what you're going to do. Paper towels, okay, they're the cheapest and some of the most effective applicators in terms of color applications. You see how I just kind of wadded that up right there and I got it into this shape right here? It looks like my finger, okay? This is nice and flat here, okay? What you're going to do is you're just going to dab in to your ink here. And here's what you're going to have to watch for. This is pigment inks here. Now, my pad right here is brand new. So these impressions right here, let me see if you can show you here. But do you see how they kind of look glistening wet? They are. So just be careful not to, you know, handle those too much, especially down here in the reeds. So I'm going to put my finger right here, and I'm going to just wipe in some of this additional tone. Now watch this. You're going to want to add in it all over the place like this, but don't. Stay in one area like this and kind of do these little swiping motions like this, okay? Don't just go like this, okay? That's not a swiping motion, okay? It's like that. It's like someone's combing someone's hair, like a child's hair. You don't just go, and then end, okay? You just kind of bring it in like this, okay, from the outside edge. Now see how I'm working one area like that? Stay there and bring it in. Always start on the outside edge, and then kind of swipe like that, like you're going like that, okay? And see how that nice transition of color looks like that. Look how beautiful that looks. It's super easy, and I just did one corner, okay? Now, come over here, maybe re-ink, okay, like that, and bring it in like this. See how blobby it looks like that right now? People go, oh my god, it's too hard. Okay, let me see if I can show you. All right, but you're not done with it. You just did one streak, okay? So stay there and blend it in like this, okay? Just stay there. People, if it looks dark all the way around the edge, people want to do this. They want to go like this. And if you do that, you're going to get this, okay? okay? So, what you're doing is you're just blending, continuing to blend in that one area. And what you're doing is you're kind of moving that ink ever so slowly. I'll show you what I'm doing on the white paper here, okay? Starting off like this. Okay? Light touch. Don't do this and say, oh my god, I can't see anything, like right here. Okay, it's on dark paper. Don't do this and say, I can't see anything, so you go like that, right? Don't do that. Don't panic like that. Almost see it as like you're almost blending in like some charcoal or something like that. I mean, this is a wet medium. Okay, now, down here by the trees, don't blend down there too much, okay? I don't want you to smear your impression. You can come into the moon a little bit in the clouds, okay? But you see what this is doing right here? By making the perimeter a little bit darker, it's making that moon stand out one step lighter, okay? All right, now let's bring this down here like this. So you just kind of work a little space like that, then over here, and then come down here, maybe around the, your trees. It's starting to set up pretty good. Stardream dries, ink's dry on Stardream just fine. I'm going to go a little bit streakier too. I like kind of adding in the streaks, so what it looks like is I'm pulling across a little streak like this, okay? And instead of just filling in this whole area, I come up here. See that? And I do this all the time. If you can do this, okay, you can create any type of lighting scenario. Believe me, that's all I'm doing on 95% of my scenes, okay? I'm going for a little bit of variation instead of like some kind of smooth application. So we're let off the hook. You don't have to do things perfectly smooth, okay? Or too full, okay? But see that kind of streak right there? Let's see if we can see it right here. Stardream is really fun. It's hard, but it's hard to show on camera. There it is right there. Okay? Now maybe have the streak in a different area over on this side. Okay? It's putting these kind of striations. Now this would look really good here in the water. Let me see if I can kind of just tone a little bit like this. Think of this as like a little powder puff or something like that that we're kind of dabbing in. It's not super wet on here. See, I'm doing that right there. So as far as an ink blending tool, these are really fantastic, okay? But that's all you need to do. But look at that. Doesn't that look kind of a little bit more full that way? You can see my streak right here. Streak came in here, a little bit up here. I like to go, especially in the four corners, a little bit of tone right there. Here, 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 here. Okay? Oh, let me see here. I mean, you can add whatever you want, or don't add anything, But let's add this little canoeist. Okay, I'm sold on the Versafine Clair. Boy, that my pad is really wet, so I have to be careful about that. Okay, so there we go. Okay, isn't that fun? Isn't that kind of an evocative looking surface right there? Oh, my son's practicing piano. Apologize for that if you can hear that in the background. But it's one of those things. You don't tell your kids, hey, stop practicing, you know what I mean? You're just happy they do that. Okay, but anyways, look at that piece right there. Pretty fast, right? And very effective. I could have added, like I said, I could have stamped this all out, but then waited for it to dry, and then added, the white pigment ink over the top of the black. But it's just easier just to add it right in the beginning like that. You see where that little eye was down here, and the little kind of arms coming out like that? I don't know, if I was to do it again, maybe I'd extend them out a little bit, a little bit more white, and down here maybe a little bit more white into the water, but I think this looks just fine. Okay, so that is your second scene right there. You do it on any of these like that, Stardream, or any dark paper. It doesn't have to be the shimmering style of Stardream, okay? Stardream just kind of adds in that extra little iridescent, shimmery type of look. You can play around with it on different tones of paper. This one happens to be a dark one right here, where black is darker than the paper, but not so far away, you know, but you can play around and experiment with all kinds of different looks. I want to get some red Stardream at some point in time and play around with that, but lots of shimmer and kind of a glistening type of look. And this isn't dry yet on here, but it will dry. It'll be just fine tomorrow. Okay, but like I said, you know, I mean, a composition like that, can you imagine a moon up here, something like that on, you know, shimmery Stardream and whatnot? Any one of these, you know, would look just fine. Okay? All right, I'm talking about from a composition standpoint. Okay, so that was lesson number 2. That is your blue Lapis Lazuli Stardream. Okay, so our next one, what we'll get into, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll do the foils or something like that. And then we'll come back to doing some kind of multicolor work on either the matte or glossy or both. Okay.